Welcome to Bounce Back Stronger, the podcast that explores ways to find peace and purpose after difficulty. And it is hot today, and that is our one difficulty that you're going to notice that both Monica and I are sleeveless. Not normally my way to podcast, but it is a scorcher today here in the end of June. And I am your host, Donna Ferris, and today we're talking with Monica Rodgers, a podcaster, seasoned coach, and spiritual practitioner who helps women disrupt what she calls the trance of unworthiness, those deeply ingrained beliefs that keep so many of us striving, proving, and disconnecting from our truth. A little about Monica. Her journey includes stepping away from a traumatic marriage, leaving behind traditional definitions of success, and choosing a life aligned with her soul's purpose. She'll share themes like the feminine as medicine, saying yes to the mess as a portal of liberation, revealing the artist within, and the transformative power of walking through the dark night of the soul. I can't wait to dive in. Monica, welcome to Bounce Back Stronger. I'm so happy to have you here.
Donna, I'm so glad to be here. I am absolutely thrilled to just visit with you today, and I look forward to an organic conversation.
Me too. Me too. And I think we have a lot to talk about. And this is a subject that I haven't really taken on before, so I'm excited to dive into it with you. You talk about interrupting the trance of unworthiness. What does that trance look like in everyday life for women, and how do we begin waking up from it?
Oh my goodness, such a great question to start with. So I call it the four P's. Women are conditioned or programmed. Think of us like, I hate to say this, but a computer chip. We are
Mm,
programmed to be pretty, pleasing, polite, and performative. We teach girls to be polite before we teach them to be perceptive, to be pleasing before they're allowed to be self-aware, to override the signals of their bodies in order to keep the adults around them comfortable. And so really, it's about interrogating and busting the bullshit rules, that come with growing up girl in the world, right? And really getting curious. That's such a big one, like teaching girls to comply before we teach them to really perceive and understand what's going on and to have permission to feel it and know it in their bodies and
hmm
to speak truth from it. Wow, I'm feeling really uncomfortable, or I'm feeling tight, or I'm feeling repulsed, or whatever the word is. But I think we need to give our girls language, and we need to give them permission to feel what they feel and know what they know.
And so many times when women are harmed in some way, people will say, why did they put themselves in that position? And you hit the point right out the gate. We didn't give them permission. We told them to make it easy for everybody else, make it nice for everybody else. And sometimes that means we don't know how to create our own agency in a situation.
That's right. And so many women find themselves still in those four P's.
Yeah.
And it becomes a matter of deprogramming, or what I call unbecoming who the world told you to be, so that you can align with the truth of who you really are. And when we understand, Donna, that each one of us women contain a multitude within us, right? And that there's not just one part of us, there's multiple parts. And I say that with full approval. We get to know these parts of ourselves and express them. And of course, that takes a certain amount of practice, but it's so liberating.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this must come from life
Lived
experience, right? You lived
experience.
so you've
Uh-huh.
lived through some major reinventions. I mentioned before that you left a traumatic marriage, you stepped away from commercial success. What did it take for you to choose authenticity over proving?
I didn't grow up being allowed to be spiritually autonomous. I grew up in a very strict Roman Catholic home where you don't question. There's kind of a big white sky god daddy, at least my understanding of it growing up. When I look back, I'm just like, oh my gosh, what I believed as a young girl, what I was programmed to believe. And so I think that if we're really lucky, we arrive at a point in our lives where we start to question.
Mhm.
And it's so funny, Donna, because we have all these expressions like curiosity killed the cat, but they're meant to keep women
Hmm.
caged in. It's like Pandora's box. By the way, we've changed all of these mythologies that were all about empowered women. And when patriarchal narratives took over, those stories got changed and those stories got distorted to keep women in a place of submission and
Hmm.
subordination. And I'm not going to tell you that I just had this one revelation. I had the universal 2x4 smackdown when I arrived at what most people would have called the pinnacle and peak of my life. Because from the outside looking in, I had what traditional success looked like. I had the big house and the white picket fence and the 2.5 kids and the dog and the handsome husband. And I had been an entrepreneur and I had reinvented myself and I had done all the things they say we women can do. I had never been more exhausted, depleted, depressed. You could go on and on. But what ended up really happening was that I started an inner prayer. And I didn't know that it was a prayer at the time. And the prayer went something like this: I can't do this anymore. Please don't make me do this anymore. Who was I talking to? But there was an inner voice that I distinctly remembered later. It was
Hmm.
like hindsight became 2020 when I started looking back. And what really started to happen was that I became ill. I got to the point where I had so much dis-ease that I made myself sick. And I ended up in bed for 9 months. I was pretending not to know that my marriage wasn't working out. I was continually overriding my body's signals. I said yes when I meant no and no when I meant yes. And I was running the programs of pretty, pleasing, polite, and performative until I couldn't run them anymore,
Until your body stopped letting you.
until my body stopped letting me. And what is so fascinating about that was when I started understanding that the body knows the way home, even when we've lost our way.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. The body tells us everything that we're not telling ourselves.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And for me, that's why I call it my podcast and my framework, the Revelation Project, because I say everyone is doing their own revelation project. And it's only when we hit kind of those crunchy places, those places where we're forced into the tension of something, where something gets revealed. And
Yeah.
again, we've been taught to stay away from those places and to keep everything copacetic. But I really encourage women to sit with the discomfort, be with the discomfort, because there's so much wisdom in it.
Yeah. Get curious about it, especially if your body is saying things. I can relate to your story. I had two incidences like that. One where I lost my memory
Oh,
in a work
wow.
conversation. I'm actually writing a novel about it now. I took it and made it into a murder mystery. So in my story, nobody got killed, but it's a great way to kick off a murder mystery. So I'm using it there. And then later on, I had medical issues that I was not addressing and ended up in the hospital with a severe infection for 5 days. And it took them 4 days to figure it out. So both times my body was telling me things. I was under a tremendous amount of stress, and it took my body shutting down before I listened. And then after that, I started to delve into the things that I've been sharing in this podcast and the things that I share on my books. But yeah, I totally relate. I
Oh my
totally relate.
gosh.
I ran into the wall.
Ran into the wall. As I hear your story, and I've heard so many women's stories, that the more we share these
Hmm.
experiences, that women don't have to come to this place where
No.
they're bedridden,
Yeah.
because we're at a crisis point right now where something's got to give, and usually it's our health. But women all over the world are starting to recognize and realize this whole concept of embodiment. I think it really is this return to the body and to stop intellectualizing everything and to really come back to, wow, what am I feeling in my body? And what is that telling me about my level of safety or discomfort or my needs, and the fact that we're allowed to have needs.
And questioning the path that everybody's laying out for us. I see this in the younger generations now. Women are starting to say, maybe I don't need to have kids. Maybe I don't need to be married right out the gate. Maybe I can choose to not necessarily follow the corporate careers of my parents, but navigate something that's more acceptable for me. So I think they're starting to see it.
I think so.
I'm hopeful anyway that they're starting to see it. Let me hit another question. So you described the feminine as medicine for an upside down world. What do you mean by that? And what does feminine leadership look like right now? I think that's a really good question because it's a little bit difficult to see a consistent role model for feminine leadership, I think.
Yeah, I don't think we're there yet. I mean, it's
No.
coming. It's coming.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. So the feminine as medicine. So let's name some of these feminine qualities because I think it's helpful. So a feminine quality is intuition. A feminine
mm,
quality is pace and cadence and nuance. A feminine quality is emotion,
empathy.
empathy,
Empathy.
emotion, compassion, right?
Hmm.
And these qualities are not allowed to thrive in a patriarchal program. And what we've done is we've, in a lot of cases, infantilized women to the point where even just as a culture, right? There's just, it's like back to the culture wars time and time again, the original war, right? But it's like, I want to call bullshit on all of that for a minute and just point to the fact that there are these qualities that are endemic to all of us as humans, and that men and women possess these qualities. And men suffer just as much as women do for not being
Agreed.
allowed
Agreed.
to express these qualities. And I've never seen anything more beautiful than a man getting in touch with his emotions or his intuition. There's nothing more life-giving or connective than having that happen in a relationship, especially between two people.
Yeah.
And so we see this happening time and time again that our relationships to men are suffering, our relationships to ourselves are suffering because we're not allowing these expressions of the feminine to be the medicine that they are.
And women are getting so angry that they are stuffing down those capabilities. And those capabilities are what the world needs. And I keep finding a lot of very angry women. And I'm like, that's not going to solve it. And being angry at men isn't going to solve it. We need to give them the space to also show those qualities.
And I
Not just,
think,
yeah,
Donna, yeah, you're pointing to something so important. I think anger is a stage that is
yes,
incredibly useful because I think, to your point, we have been so suppressed.
yes,
Rage is in some ways helpful because at least it's getting us in touch with there's something here I've been tolerating that I can no longer tolerate. And yes, it's about redirecting that anger. And I think it's often about pointing to the deeper emotion, which is often grief.
yes,
And I
I
think
agree with that.
most women are terrified to even begin to tap into the reservoir of grief that we have because we're afraid we'll never stop crying,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah.
there's so much of it. And so anger is a safer emotion, I think, for women to feel. But even then, it's a leap.
Yeah, I can't remember who said it, but anger is lazy grief, but I think that's a really good point. And I would say, though, I agree with you. Anger can lead to action, but in our connection with people, you need to find a way to cool that
That's
because we
right.
never make great decisions in anger. We never
No,
connect well with people in anger, no matter how we are in our anger. It's finding a way to cool that, get some equanimity with it, and then figuring out the best
absolutely.
right action. And what we don't need is more of the opposite.
It it's like in this realm for me of nonviolent communication. And I think, again, of all of the things we're taught in school, and we're so lacking in this relational education,
Yes.
knowing ourselves, getting curious with another.
Yep. Emotional regulation, emotional definitions. There's hundreds of emotions, but we really only work with three,
Somebody
maybe.
once said there was like 88 keys on a piano and we use three of them, right?
That's right. And this, I love this question. Say yes to the mess is such a compelling phrase, and it really is. How can messiness actually become a portal to liberation rather than something we try to fix or really hide? And we get so shameful of our mess, but it is
Yeah.
the mess that brings us to our growth, right?
Absolutely. Again, a fifth P would be perfectionism that
Yeah, oh my
women
gosh. It's the worst.
suffer
Yeah.
from. It's the
Yep,
worst.
it is.
So, saying yes to the mess is this invitation of if we think we're going to keep it all handled and be unbecoming, we're sorely mistaken, right?
That's right.
Something's got to give. And so it's like starting to be in full approval of our messy and magnificent selves. It's when I invite the sacred and to come and say, yes, I am both and, right?
Hmm.
And those two things can stand together and not have to cancel each other out. And when it comes to our emotions are messy, our bodily functions are messy. We're going to make mistakes as we make our way back to ourselves and in relationship to others. So we have to be willing to say, I'm not going to be perfect at this. I'm going to get this wrong a few times. Can you hang out with me while I get it right? We're going to have to be vulnerable. We're going to have to be transparent. And that is such a beautiful thing because, again, it's like, we're taught all these ways to not be that. And yet that's where all the beauty is. That's where all the magic is. That's where all the connection is. When you think about every, at least for me, when I think about every relationship I've had that has been willing to rupture and then repair, the relationship is even stronger because it had the rupture. It's
For
not
sure.
about never screwing it up. It's about what do we do when we come back to the table and redesign how to be with each other? How can I belong to myself first and not betray myself and still be in relationship with you in a way that feels generative and loving and kind and compassionate? And so I do believe too that creativity, if we want to be creative, and that's who we are as women, we are the creators. And when I talk about feminine as medicine for an upside down world, it's because it's all the opposite. It's all inverse in this world. It's, oh, we came from a man's rib instead of a man coming from our vajayjay
Wombs.
and
Yes.
wombs. It's like,
What?
I've never heard anything so absurd in my life, but I was in that trance up until I was easily in my 40s.
Yes.
It takes so much unraveling. And for me, it wasn't like a welcome conversation with any of the people that I was programmed to be with, my kind,
Yes.
right? Who are all keeping me in the box,
In the
right?
box. I don't want to say that we, at least for me, I'm a believer in a lot of different things. So
Me too.
I don't want to throw everything out. But I think it's important to look at the context of how things are handed to us and
Absolutely.
look at the source.
Yeah,
We look at the source and so many other things that we do in our lives, and in some places we don't
that's right.
question. And that's really what you're asking is to question and look at the source.
And again, not to throw any shade, right? Because I think once we get out of that box, we can always come back to these places where we were conditioned and recognize that it wasn't because anybody was trying
Yes.
purposely to keep us down. It's their own programming.
Yes.
Because growing up, I was taught to find a nice Christian boy.
Yes.
There's so many of those little,
Things.
I call it death by a thousand tiny paper cuts. They're tiny little programs that just get repeated over time and they
Yes.
just over and over.
A nice
Mhm.
Christian doctor, actually, would be
Oh,
what they wanted you
yes.
to guess.
Yes, that's right.
And I think what might be helpful here to say is even though we might get curious and we try to reject the programming, it's still inside. So,
For sure.
which is one of the reasons I will just plug yet again meditation because it allows you to start to befriend and notice those thought patterns because they continue to run and you just have to keep questioning them and be kind to yourself and remind yourself that you're enough and you're able to make different choices than what your brain, which is programmed, continues to tell you. And I think that's just an important one to note. Not,
It's
yeah,
so right on the money. Yeah.
it will do the monkey mind and the hokey pokey and all the things you let it. And if you don't have a regular practice to notice it in a kind way, and start to reprogram, you will continue to lean toward the Instagram photo and feel bad about yourself, or
Mm.
think that you have to have the Birkin bag, which is insane. Let me tell you, and I did all this stuff. I'm not saying that I didn't. I don't have a Birkin bag, but I do have a lot of bags, and they don't really do anything for me. They hang. That's about it. They hang in my
Yeah.
corner of my room. That's about the extent of what they do now.
Mhm.
And I wish I had that money, ladies. I wish I did. So I'm gonna have to look at time. I hate that.
Hate that.
I hate that. I do really like this one. You mentioned the necessary dark night of the soul. How do
Mhm.
we move through these difficult seasons without losing ourselves, and what's possible on the other side? And I think in here somewhere is that embracing of the shadow idea too, if you feel interested in hitting that as well.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that about not losing yourself because I can't guarantee that you won't and that it won't be the best thing that ever happened to you if you have a dark
Mm,
night. Part of the telemetry of the dark night or the intelligence of the dark night is that you lose your identity, that you actually have an identity death. And that I also don't want to romanticize it because
no.
it, like Sophie Strand is an author who I highly admire and her work is amazing. And she often refers to dark nights as initiations. And she says it's only an initiation if you survive. And that's
Mm,
often how people feel when they come out of a dark night. Wow, that was a tight shave. I almost didn't make it. It
hmm
feels so real
hmm
because your construct of reality, it's like your reality breaks
Yeah.
and it can be very disorienting. But interestingly enough, there are also these fantastic myths, and I'm going to point your listeners to one of them that I highly recommend, which is the myth of Inanna. And
Mm,
to realize that a Sumerian author, a woman, wrote this myth thousands of years ago that actually map out the dark night for women. It's this very powerful journey of Inanna, the queen. She ends up becoming queen of the underworld. But at first in the story, she kind of was living on the surface of life, like we were talking about pretty, pleasing, polite, performative, and perfect. And then she puts her ear to the great below and she hears something more. And it's her unconscious calling her to go in. And she descends down through seven gates. And at each of the gates, the guardian at the gate, she asks the question, why do I have to take off my crown? Why do I have to take off my robe? And the guardian says, quiet, Inanna. The ways of the underworld are perfect. And by the time she comes back up, she's stopped asking questions. But when she gets to the very bottom, what she realizes is the parts of herself that she had kicked out or that she had exiled in order to belong to this surface life reality. She gets to reclaim those parts. And as she goes back through the seven gates, she's able to decide what she wants to take with her and what she wants to leave behind, kind of like the Birkin bag.
let's leave that behind.
I don't
Yeah, I
need
love
that
it.
anymore. I don't need
Yeah.
that for my identity. I don't need that to feel successful anymore. And
Yeah.
so it's amazing to think again, this Sumerian woman wrote this myth all those years ago, and it maps out this dark night of the soul because a woman's dark night, the heroine's journey, is different from the hero's journey. And we have to acknowledge that men and women have these different spiritual orientations and journeys, and it's the inward journey. So it's
For sure.
fascinating.
Oh, that is fascinating. That is so fascinating. And as we start to tie up, what actions can women take after they listen to this podcast and it creates a stir in their mind and in their
Mm.
heart and in their body? What should they be doing? What should they do first?
The first thing I would say to any woman is put your hand on your heart and just
Mm,
approve of yourself right here, right now.
mm.
In all of your messiness, in all of your emotion, in all of your rage, in all of whatever's coming up for you, confusion, fear, creativity, whatever's coming up, just approve. And if you can't approve of yourself, begin a practice of self approval. Wow, I lost it this morning. I approve. Just be the voice of approval for yourself and have your own back for a change because the world taught you how to abandon yourself and you don't even realize that you're doing it anymore. It's just so programmed. And
I
so
love
the
that.
way to break the program is to start noticing when you're in disapproval and to change it into approval.
And write those down when it happens and get curious about what's happening in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because it starts
absolutely.
to make you question your relationships, question the situations you're in, question the work that you're doing, question the bags that you're buying. It makes you question what is going on. Oh, I love that so much, the approval. As we close, what's one thing I didn't ask? or you want to share before we go?
That I believe women are magnificent. I believe that we are the oracles of this world and that we have been entranced to believe otherwise, and that by disrupting that trance, we return to an incredibly powerful human being who is here to make magic. And I believe that with all my heart. I believe women are magical creatures. And I believe that when we start working with what's possible, everything opens up. And when we stop seeing ourselves through the lens that has been given to us and instead just begin to see all of the facets of our beauty and our raw power, we are unstoppable. And I think every woman needs to know that, and that what we admire in other women isn't jealousy, it's admiration. It's
Yeah, we have to
actually
be kind to each
admiration.
other.
And that
Yeah.
usually there's an aspect of ourselves that we recognize in her. And so to just to celebrate other women, to acknowledge them, even if they're not willing to accept the acknowledgement yet. And one other tip, you asked me what women can do to change. When next time you get a compliment, I just want you to stop and say, thank you, it's true. So let me practice with you, Donna. You are an amazing podcaster.
Oh, this is hard. Thank you. It's true, but it's really hard. I'm a deflector.
Yeah.
I'm a deflector.
Yeah.
You got me.
Yeah. So to just really take it in and be like, thank you. And if you're really bold, it's true.
This has been such a great conversation. I want to thank you so much for your work, and I feel so inspired today. My heart is full. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Keep doing what you're doing. It's
You
amazing.
too. We
Yeah,
need us.
we do. We need
We,
us.
we need us.
We've got this.
We got this. We
Yeah.
got this. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's all for today. If you want to learn more about Monica, those links will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. If it was, please subscribe, drop a review, or share it with your friends and family. That's the best way to get it in the hands of those who may benefit. And if my daughters Sienna and Sylvie are listening, I just want you to know how proud I am of you. And I love you so much. Bye now.